Good evening, all.
Good afternoon, Prof. How are you?
Good afternoon. How are you?
Can't complain, doctor.
I'm well. What about the rest? Hello there.
I'm fine, doctor.
Afternoon, doctor.
Justus, how are you? So let's give the rest some few minutes. Kindly reach out to them, so that they can join us. We begin early enough and finish early. I think in the interest of time, we can begin because we've taken about 10 minutes. So what do you think?
That's fine, Doctor. I think maybe the others will join as they go. Maybe they have network issues or load shedding or something of some other sort.
Have you reached out to them?
I haven't heard anything, Prof.
Yeah, remember I mentioned at the beginning, and I think this was also communicated during the orientation that you guys are supposed to attend the classes because you cannot sit for exams if you have not attained a certain threshold. And normally ARC are keen on class attendance. So remember, every day we do record those who have attended. And if you don't attain the threshold, then you'll be barred from sitting for the exams. So I think those who have issues should communicate. I can see Troy has excused himself. And
Yes,
I
and
think
he's been having internet issues, Doctor. He's been
from my
experiencing.
records, from my records, his attendance is not really nice. So Hanko, you can communicate to him,
All right, Doctor, I will do that.
Yes, because okay, he was there yesterday. He has missed like 3 times, so which is worrying. What about the
All right, I'll let
others?
him know. I know,
Ugandans are also missing. Ugandans are missing,
Doctor, if I remember correctly, on the JSE support group that Paul and them, they gave us a link for that. I know there were a few people that complained about internet bundles and so on because they weren't allowed to stay at the residences where they stay because I think their universities are on leave, so they had to vacate, which is now causing issues because some people don't necessarily have the data to come to class, especially with data being so expensive, as I've heard. I did send a message on our WhatsApp group to ask if they could potentially please join. So hopefully they'll come. I know that they said they are busy trying to sort out the data bundle issue and stuff like that.
Yeah, remember this is a sacrifice, and you must sacrifice your resources as well.
Yes, Doctor.
Of course, resources are limited. How have the others managed to join? So you cannot afford to meet like 3 consecutive times. Even if you didn't have data maybe in the previous meeting, you can make arrangements, at least just to plug in for the next meeting. So that is just a reminder to them that they should at least try and join some of these meetings because at the end of the semester, we will analyze the class attendance, and those who have not attained the threshold, they should not blame us for banning them to sit for the exams. Okay, so I think we can continue where we left the previous class. And some of you have not shared the assignments. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Doctor.
Yes, the first assignment I've only received from 9 people. Then the second assignment I've received from 2 groups. So the other 2 groups have not forwarded their presentation so that I can upload them on ClickUp. So kindly, if your team has not forwarded the group assignment, do so before end of day. So I think in the previous class, we discussed some points on supply chain design and analysis. And I think we did a recap. We looked at the different supply chains, how they can be simple and others can as well be complex. And then how do they work? We looked at the various actors within the chain, the primary actors, the supporting actors, and the institutional actors. And then we also looked at the supply chain networks that exist. And we tried to explain how these networks exist and the structure of these networks. And we talked about the 2 dimensions, that is the vertical and horizontal dimensions. And we say that vertical dimensions actually reflects on the flow of goods and services from one actor to the other actor, for instance, from the producer to the consumers, while horizontal reflects a relationship between actors who are in the same level or link. And we gave some examples. Do you remember the examples that we gave? And other than that, I also shared 2 articles, the case studies. How many of you managed to go through the case studies?
I did, Doctor.
There's one on Haiti, the sorghum value chain. And there was another one on vertical and horizontal linkages.
Yes, Doctor.
So who managed to go through them?
I'm still busy going through them, Doctor. We had a test yesterday, so a lot of my work was taken up for the test yesterday.
So you're still going through the articles, eh? And remember, as you go through the articles, please just summarize, make some notes, summarize some of the key points highlighted in the case studies. So Nkosi, you will. What about the others, Lindani?
Yes, Doctor, I'm still trying to go through it.
Nancy?
Yes, Doctor. I only went through the summary, not the whole of it.
Not the whole article, the case study,
Yeah.
But there are a few pages, Of course, you can peruse through. So if you look at the Haiti value chain, how they were able to map the sorghum value chain, and they were concerned about 3 issues. They were analyzing the input and output structure of the value chain. How does sorghum flow through the supply chain, right from production to consumption? And what are some of the relationships that exist along the supply chain? And these relationships that they discussed are the ones that we've just mentioned, the vertical relationships and the horizontal relationships. And they also looked at what do consumers demand? So as you map the chain, you also need to understand the needs of these consumers. They looked at the institutions, the rules and the norms that, of course, binds these relationships. Who determines some of these rules and norms? And who enforces them? And of course, some of them are formal, others are informal. And those who did, behavioral economics, I'm sure you clearly understand some of these institutions. Maybe can you recall some of the institutions that can work in a relationship from the new institutional economics or behavioral economics? Some of the rules or norms that governs a value chain. Who can share with us? So if you read through the article, you will find that the case studies, they've pointed out some of these institutions that helps in governing the supply chains. So how are they developed and who communicates them? Yes, Nancy?
I was saying that the question you asked, is it like property rights, the contracts?
Mm-hmm. The institutions,
Yeah.
Okay. So the property rights, yes.
And also,
when we talk about, yes?
Doctor, sorry,
Uncle?
there's also I can't remember if it's in the two articles that you gave us, Trita, or a third one, that also mentioned about the rise of principal agent issues that arise due to obviously misalignment of certain intentions. But specifically with this, the institutions here would be the informal and the formal agreements, because obviously you're sitting on the one side where there's a lot of smallholder farmers that need to participate. Then the argument is whether to vertically integrate or horizontally integrate to best assist them to overcome the 4 challenges that were mentioned at the beginning of the article, namely like lack of skills, lack of access to finances, lack of knowledge, and so on. So the article then ended up saying that there are formal institutions and informal institutions. Formal institutions basically including stuff like all of the policies that regulate the quality, the quantity, where certain of these, for example, we spoke about, I think it was in the earlier articles that you gave us about the rise of these big corporate value chains, for example, like Massmart and ShopRite and stuff that only procure certain quality of grains and stuff like that. So then you start getting into the more formal side of things where there are actual standards that people must comply to. And that's where they also discuss here interventions that certain areas do undergo. For example, co-ops and so on that only supply a certain quality of seed to indirectly assist the farmers to be able to be compliant with all of their regulations. They also only hold certain amounts or certain types of pesticides and herbicides that are obviously compliant with what the outcomes of the people who would want to buy it, to obviously also assist I want to say little small people to be able to participate in the major game. So yeah, and I think one thing that's also very clear from this approach of how they map this value chain, they relied a lot on some of the stakeholders in the value chain to assist them with it. But there are also some caveats, especially with some of the challenges being the lack to access or the lack of the number of extension officers available to actually help smallholder farmers to actually be able to be compliant, to actually be able to participate on such a large scale. So I think from institutional economics, those are just some of the few things that we can see.
Thank you very much, Uncle. So it's quite detailed, and we've seen that there are some of these formal and informal rules and norms that have been mentioned in the case studies. And of course, they are trying to address some of the challenges that have been pointed out, such as the weaker connections, with the other market actors, credit constraints, the high transaction cost, and so on and so forth. So how do they go about this? So establishing these institutions, rules and norms is very, very important as it governs their operations within the value chains. And then they also talked about the key infrastructure. And what are some of the infrastructures that they've mentioned in the case study? Those who have read the case study.
I think some of the issues that they also raised, for example, was lack of adequate storage facilities, because a lot of the farmers actually tend to store most of their crops in, for example, like a room in their houses or in like a communal shed. So obviously cross-contamination is quite a big concern. And then they also said, obviously, due to where they stay, being smallholder farmers, the distance is also an issue. And obviously poor quality roads and so on.
Yes, of course, they've mentioned a number of things relating to the storage facilities, even as they transport their produce, the poor road networks, among others. So all these supports the value chain. So for it to operate efficiently, then they need to address all those concerns that have been highlighted in the case as a study. So, and the other one was on the vertical and horizontal linkages. So how do you help, or how can smallholder farmers be assisted, to access the markets? And they've discussed how they can be linked vertically and horizontally, so that at the end of the day, they are able to access the markets and overcome some of the limitations that they face when they operate as individual farmers. So again, that is another article that is very, very useful and will enhance your understanding those governance structures. So please ensure that you read that. And from the Haiti sorghum value chain, you've seen that, or you realize that value chain mapping is done through consultation, not a one-month affair. So there is stakeholder involvement, engaging various actors and supporters within the chain. And they were able to develop a map for that value chain. So I believe you've also managed to go through the map, and you've seen how they identified the various actors, the primary actors, the support, the regulatory actors, and so on and so forth. So, and that is very, very important. So you can do the same to other, of course, commodities, and try and compare those maps or networks, how they look like. So now I want us to move to upgrading of the value chains. So how can we upgrade the value chains? Again, farms can increase or enhance their competitiveness through upgrading. And we'll see the different ways in which upgrading can be done. So when you talk about upgrading, we are trying to maximize on the value creation, as well as increase efficiency within the value chains. So we have got different commodities that can be upgraded. And when we talk about upgrading, we can focus on the different areas within the value chain. Be it at the farm level, you can optimize on the use of the inputs as you maximize on the produce or the output. The support enablement, we've seen different support systems that are needed to ensure that the value chain functions accordingly. During processing, you can undertake some upgrading as these products move along the chain, being distributed from one point to the other. Again, you can undertake some upgrading. You need to understand the customer interests by undertaking a market analysis. And at the end of the day, of course, the feedback from the customer is very, very important. So all these activities are potential for upgrading. And therefore, there are key areas or key strategies that can be used in upgrading a value chain. And normally we have about 4 of them. We have the process upgrading. We normally have the product upgrading. We also have the functional upgrading. And sometimes the channel upgrading. What kind of channels are you, have you adopted? The distribution channels, the marketing channels, the communication channels. Can also be used to upgrade some of these activities. So when you talk about process upgrading, so on the picture, this is an example of a commodity. That is a fabric, and we want to develop some fabric, products. So of course, it begins by identifying the right inputs, materials. You assemble these inputs based on the customer's needs or specifications. And these inputs can be sourced locally or they can be imported if necessary due to limited availability and quality concerns. If you want to come up with good quality products, then it means that even the input material should be of quality. So once, of course, you have sourced the right inputs, then it goes through a number of functions, manufacturing related functions. And this will further be transformed to the material, to the product which you desire have at the end of the day. And as it is being transformed, it goes through some design and product development. And sometimes it is done, in consultation with the buyer. So there are certain buyers that might need certain brands. So you design again based on their specifications. And once you have developed these, now you release it to the market, of course, through different market channels. And you are able to improve on the value through a number of activities. So when we talk about process upgrading, you think about increasing the efficiency of production, either through better, organization or use of the processes. For instance, you can adopt improved technology so that you cut on the costs, or you increase the output. So there are certain processes that, of course, are outdated, are inefficient, are slow. You'll take time for you to be able to, accomplish the task within the right time. So if you adopt a certain technology, then you are able to minimize on the time, as well as cut down on the costs and increase the output. So that is referred to as process upgrading. So who can give us an example of a process upgrading? Hello? Example of process upgrading?
Doctor, in terms of process upgrading, that could be with the soybean mills, that you're changing your milling capacity and you're bringing in new technology or bigger machinery to improve your output and production values of the milling of cracking soybeans and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, that is a good example. Any other example? Any other example? Nancy?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm getting this one right. So the example I can give, it's in the coffee, what they do the process upgrading through the mechanized harvesting. Yeah. Or maybe traditional harvesting to the new ones.
Mm-hmm. So you adopt a new way of harvesting, maybe the use of machinery, so that it can be done faster. And you also minimize on the losses. Mm-hmm. How else can you upgrade your processes? You can also, be innovative, Through innovations, you come up with new ways, You can bypass some of these processes. You can introduce some processes that will improve on your competitiveness. So you can see under the process upgrading, some of the strategies that have been adopted for the fabrication, includes improving productivity through new capital investments, improving IT and logistics, reducing lead time, and increasing the flexibility of the supply chain process, among others. Then we also have the product upgrading. We know that different customers prefer different product specifications in terms of the quality, the brand, and so on and so forth. So as you improve the product quality, you will also increase value for customers. So as an entrepreneur, you may decide to introduce new products, of course, with better qualities that can meet the expectations of the customers. Or you can decide to improve on the existing products. You may improve the quality of the existing products. So again, this requires some creativity and innovation, some research, of course, development. You can also decide to have, varied types of products, again, product diversification, so that you are able to meet different customers' desires. Is that clear?
Yes, doctor.
Yes,
Is
doctor.
product upgrading clear? Then we also have the functional upgrading. So again, when you are trying to improve on their functional, sometimes you might buy a product and you feel that it does not satisfy your need in terms of its functionality. If, for instance, it is a soap and you're using it to clean your clothes, and at the end of the day, you find that it does not remove those stubborn stains. So has it really achieved its function? Hello? Hello? Has it achieved its function?
No, doctor.
So when you talk about functional upgrading, you are trying to increase the value added by changing some of the mix of activities within the farm for you to be able to come up with a product that will address the needs, will serve its purpose as intended. So if that product does not serve its purpose as intended, then in terms of its functions, it has not addressed that need. So you are able to increase its functionality in a different, by applying different strategies. So again, as you can see, you can be able to do this through collaboration with the buyers so that you are able to understand the buyers' needs. You are able to understand what should be incorporated in these products such that at the end of the day, it's able to achieve its functions. Then we normally have the channel upgrading. So again, as these products move along the different chains before they get to the market, you'll find that they have to move through various channels. So how do you collaborate with these actors? What kind of information do you gather from the different actors or channels that can enable these products to be moved efficiently all through the chains? So when you get the right information, then you're able to know the quantities to be distributed. You are able to understand the different market segments to be served at the different times. So again, it is important to understand the end markets and be able to come up with a range of activities that can ensure that these products get to the end markets. So you can decide to come up with new logistic ways. You can decide to outsource some of the activities. You can decide to come up with new ways of marketing your products or channels that you think most consumers or actors can be able to access the information timely and without distortion. And also think about the infrastructure as you market these products, the channels. For instance, if you are marketing fish, We know that fish is highly perishable. Will you market it or will you consider the same channels that you would consider when marketing, let's say, potatoes? Do you think the marketing channels will be the same and the dynamics will be the same?
They'll be different.
They'll be different, yes, because fish is highly perishable. And even in terms of the storage facilities, you'll need deep freezers, and they should even take a shorter time because of the nature of perishability. So all those you need to consider. So if you think of a faster way of marketing them, then you are able to upgrade these channels. So are you able to give examples, for these different kinds of strategies that can enhance value creation and increase efficiency along the value chain? So are you able to think of some of the mechanisms that can be used to upgrade the product, the functions, the channel, and the processes within the value chain? Of course, I expect you to, as you are at your own time, to read more on those strategies and how do they work. But it is important that actors at any given time should aim at creating value and increasing efficiency along the value chains, either through process upgrading or product upgrading or functional or channel upgrading. It doesn't necessarily mean that value can be created when you are, producing the products or the commodity on the farm, or when you are transforming it to other usable goods through processing. There are other ways in which you can be able to create value. So I think that is the bit that remained from the previous lesson that I wanted us to finish up before we move to the next topic. So any question?
No, Doctor. All's
Not
good
from
and
my
well.
side, Doctor.
I just wanted to ask, can these updated notes maybe be posted on ClickUp? Because I see this slide is not included on the notes on ClickUp.
Yes, I will update it.
All right, thank you, Doctor.
I'll update. I know I added one slide which is not in the other slide which I shared with you on ClickUp. So I will include it. But for the other sections on the governance, I have encouraged you to read those 2 case studies. You will get all the information right from some of the challenges that actors face and how they can overcome these challenges. Nkosi, you are concerned about the scope of the test, eh? Nkosi? So let's move to today's lesson, eh? That is information management. Information management. So you cannot talk about these chains, the value chain, the supply chain, without mentioning information and how it can be managed. I know we also manage information. We have gadgets such as phones, laptops. How else do we manage the information? We have hard copies of books, articles. How else do you manage your information?
Doctor, we also have backup systems to make sure that all of our data is stored somewhere else in case something happens to the computers and stuff that we use. We have online services to make it easily accessible on multiple different devices. We also make use of a lot of protection software to avoid that some of our information gets stolen or used for any other purposes other than what it was intended for.
Yes, and even in terms of access to information, in the current world, we can easily access information
Doctor,
because of the technological advancement. Yes?
Can one say like social media when I see like people, when you journal something, like I'm a blogger and like when I write stuff, putting them on social media is like more of preserving them. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes, social media, there's a lot of information. Of course, some of these information are valid, others are rumors. So it's upon you to sieve the information and be able to understand how to use the information. So I remember last month I lost my memory stick, and I had saved a lot of information. And for close to 2 weeks, I was sick because I did not transfer that information to my backup. I kept on procrastinating that I'll transfer it. But then when I lost the memory stick, you know, it's like my life had come to an end. So that tells you how information is very important. So within the supply chain and value chain, it is important to understand information. What kind of information are we talking about? How do we share information, the sources of this information? Of course, you must screen information. And remember from, again, the institutional economics, some of the costs that transactional costs that we talk about, information search is a cost, isn't it? Is it costly to access information?
It just depends what kind of information you are trying to source. Sometimes if it's, for example, held by companies or so on, in order to get access to it, you have to pay a certain fee. Sometimes you have to pay people to help you find information or correlate data and stuff like that in order to get the information you need.
Yes, so you're saying that it depends on the kind of information that we are referring to.
Yes, Doctor.
But even at the end of the day, imagine you've worked on a document. Right now you're busy developing your proposals. And then at some point you realize that somebody, you know, stole your work and has gone ahead and even presented the work. How will you feel?
Very angry and upset,
yes.
especially for us as UP students, or at least I know for the master's students, our proposals, well, I'm sure everyone's proposals have already been approved by our departments. So now it's on to the next phase, trying to apply for ethics and so on. So I think, yeah, I would be very pissed. No, excuse my language. I would be very angry.
You'll be angry,
Yes, especially given, I mean, we've slaved for 6 months to try and get our proposals done. So, I mean, it's been a lot of work to try and get it sorted and up to standard.
So you can imagine the time that you've taken to piece together the information, So, and that's why it's normally said that information search can be costly in terms of time, not necessarily the amount of money that you part with when, for instance, you want to access some data, because you know that there are some databases that you have to pay for you to be able to access the information. There are certain articles that you cannot just access. They are not open. There's a certain fee that you need to pay in order to access the article or the journal article. So we therefore say that information is very, very important to the supply chain performance, because it provides the foundation on what supply chain or the value chain processes and transactions can be executed for managers and different actors to make a decision. So it serves as the glue that allows the other supply chain drivers to work together with the goal of creating an integrated and coordinated supply chain. Remember, there are a number of actors, stakeholders involved in the supply chain. So at the end of the day, the information should move across the network, the supply chain network. Because without the right information, then an actor cannot make a sound decision. You may not know what customers want, how much stock to be availed, when to produce, and how to produce, among other things. So at the end of the day, it provides a supply chain visibility as an actor tries to make a decision. So different members within the supply chain, they possess, of course, different ranges of information. So you find that a producer or an input provider may be in possession of certain information that a producer does not have, or a retailer might not have. So at the end of the day, they need to share this information across the network. Are we together?
Yes,
So
Dr.
information management is very, very important because it provides adequate visibility within the supply chain as the different actors try to make sound decisions. And hence that will improve on the performance of the chain. So information can be gathered, from different sources. You can have data that is later on analyzed and transformed into information where people can acquire and utilize the information. We all have different ways of accessing information and different kinds of information that can also be shared across. So when you talk about information strategies within the value chain, of course, the connectivity, can these actors connect to each other? What kind of information are you sharing across? The standards of these information. Of course, the willingness. Are these people willing to share the information? I know there are people who don't like sharing information. Maybe you are in a class and a lecturer, poses a question, and you think that if you respond to the question, the other people will benefit. So you keep quiet. You reserve your comments. Do we have such kind of people here who are very economical with the, you know, information? Hello?
Sorry, doctor, come again.
Do we have such characters who are very economical with the information? You don't want to share information,
Oh, like people who gatekeep information once they've received it. Or
No,
if they've
maybe you
got the
are in
upper
class. I've
hand,
given an
or
example whereby you are in class and the lecturer poses a question, but then you feel that when you respond, because you know the answer, other people might benefit from, you know, that knowledge. So you keep it to yourself. So of course that is very wrong. So you can imagine within the supply chain or the value chain, if we have such kind of character, then it means that the flow of information will be compromised. At certain nodes of the chain, we may not have the right information to make the right decision. So information is very important in the management of a supply chain because it helps in increasing customer value. Because when you understand the preferences, the expectations of the customers, then you're able to tailor your products to meet their expectations. You're also able to minimize on costs. If you understand where to source for the inputs at a cheaper price, how to go about or identify suppliers with, you know, minimal prices, and so on and so forth. Sorry, okay. So when you talk about information, what kind of information are we keen on, or the characteristics of information? So in this case, as actors within the chain, they expect to get accurate information. The other expectation is that the information must be shared by various actors across the chain freely, without reservations. This information should be accessible. So as a producer, you can access information about the prices. You can access information about the market needs. Then, of course, the right also to share the information. So at the end of the day, people must be willing to share the information. And of course, there are certain information that people might not share freely, again, depending on the type of information that we are talking about. For instance, you cannot go about sharing your project or proposal with any person, because you never know whoever you are sharing the information with. I remember when I was doing my master's, I once shared my proposal with just a friend. You know, the way you can share with a friend just to check for you the flow of the work and proofread for you the work. But then later on, my supervisor attended defense in a different university, and she was surprised to come across a proposal which was similar to mine, word by word, except just the names and a few things. But what happened, I think that friend of mine also shared with another person. And before we realized, already somebody, you know, ran with it and shared it or defended it in one of the universities. The good thing is that my supervisor, one of my supervisors, was also attending the defense. So she stopped that work and even shared with them what I had done. And they had to nullify that work. So that tells you that you cannot share any information. You must understand the kind of information, leave the information to be shared and what not to share. And you've seen what's happening, even on the social, networks. When people just share information, what happens? What happens? You guys, you don't interact with the social media?
Doctor, I think it spreads fast, especially on social media. Like, if you share something right now, you find with a lot of people at the end of the day just know it.
Yes, so within a very short time, the message has traveled far and wide. And if it
Yes,
was not
doctor.
something pleasing, already it is in the public domain. So you must understand the specific knowledge or information that you want to share. And as mentioned, information sometimes can be costly when you are transferring from one person user to another user. So first and foremost, before you share information, you need to ask yourself, why are you sharing the information? Why? What is the need of sharing that information? Whom are you sharing this information with? And when should you share the information? So you must validate the information that you want to share before you share it. So ask yourself those questions. Why? What kind of information do you want to share? Who are you sharing this information with? And when do you want to share the information? So those questions are very, very important. Now, again, in the institutional economics, I remember there's a topic on information asymmetry. So who can explain to us what information asymmetry is?
It's basically when certain shareholders have certain information, but other participants in the market don't necessarily have access to that information. So then it's like they're going into battle blind, if I can say it like that. They're just uninformed of what's happening.
So when different players in the supply chain have different information, it could be about the resources, it could be about certain processes, market information, the prices, etc. But the other players are not privy to the information. So sometimes you find that one player has more information than the others. So as a result, then you find that the supply chain may suffer from those problems. Isn't it? So if you find that one player in the chain has more information than the other, most likely there'll be misunderstanding between these players. And even in terms of collaboration, it can be hampered with when one person has more information. And also it can be very difficult to deal with certain uncertainties within the chain. And we are also able to experience some of these opportunistic behaviors. So, and this normally happens because various members of the supply chain, they have got different positions within the supply chain. And at the end of the day, you'll find that their aims and strategies are also different. And there could be also conflicting objectives at the end of the day. So you find that one party has a different or a totally different objective from the other party. Are we together? Hello?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, now I'm giving you 2 minutes to ponder on these problems, the advanced selection, moral hazard, and opportunistic behavior. And then we can discuss them. 2 minutes to reflect on those challenges. Two minutes are enough, or 3?
Yeah, that's fine, Doctor.
Okay. So are you through? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
doctor.
Doctor.
Are you through?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, so now who can tell us what is adverse selection? Yes, just as
Doctor, so adverse selection is when I would say one person knows something about another party that that original party didn't know they know, so then they defer their option and they go to another one. So in terms of insurance, they know this person is predisposed to a certain type of illness, so they won't then supply them with that insurance. Yeah.
So when one person hides truthful information about
Yes.
something, and this information needs to be shared maybe before entering into a contractual arrangement or before a contract is signed. So you've given an example of insurance, or can you just explain the example that you've given?
So in the insurance example, doctor, let's say you're applying for health insurance and the health insurance company has gotten you have a chronic illness, yet you haven't told the insurer that you have this chronic illness, and that's why you're looking for the insurance. And the insurance company has done its research on you and has found out, they'll adversely not supply you with their product because they know what your reasoning is for going to get the insurance.
Yes. So you know very well that you've got a terminal illness or chronic illness, and you go for an insurance cover, but then you don't disclose the information. You hide that information from the company. And you specifically went for the cover because of that terminal illness or chronic illness. And you now want to benefit, from the cover, but then you don't disclose them that you have that illness. Who can give us a different example?
Doctor, another example more related to, for example, like agriculture, we can, for example, make use of the example of sellers having information that buyers do not. So, for example, they know, for example, they can say that they used certain pesticides and herbicides on their crops, but ended up using obviously different compared to what the standards outline. But obviously, when they tell the buyers they make use of it, it's quickly to just lie. And obviously, if the other person trusts you, obviously, then you could potentially get away with it. Obviously, there are tests that are done, but that's, for example, adverse selection scenario in agriculture.
Yes, farmers use certain pesticides of even a certain amount, which is not the required amount. And of course, because of thirst for money, and sometimes they want to dispose of these produce within a very short time, they end up using excess chemicals or pesticides. But remember, the buyer is not in possession of this information, doesn't know the information. And it's so common nowadays, even here in Kenya, we know that the tomatoes, farmers pump a lot of chemicals on tomatoes or even vegetables. And there's a certain period of time that, after applying these chemicals, the vegetables should stay on the farm for a certain period. But you find that a farmer, sprays the vegetables, and after one day he harvests and takes to the market because he wants to, make money within a very short time. And as a buyer, when you buy that vegetable, sometimes they look very healthy and appealing to your eyes. But you don't really understand the hidden information about these healthy vegetables. So one party ends up benefiting at the expense of the other party. What about a moral hazard?
So
about,
doctor, in that case, moral hazard is when you act differently
No,
after
let's
you.
get someone else.
Okay.
These other guys. Sibongile. Sibongile, can you explain to us? Instead of typing, you cannot speak, eh? Who can speak? Nkuli?
So basically, how I understood moral hazard, doctor, would be when one party to a transaction kind of acts in, I don't want to say shady, but like in a shady or not in good faith, basically, knowing that the other party to the transaction will bear the economic consequences of their actions.
So give us an example.
In terms of, I think, maybe corruption could be a form of moral hazard because taxpayers don't know that, like, those who commit corruption are acting in bad faith, but ultimately the taxpayers are the ones who are paying the economic consequences of the corruptors' actions.
Who else can give us a different example related to our area of interest?
Maybe crop insurance. Like, for example, a farmer might neglect pest control, assuming that the crop insurance will compensate for any resulting damage. Just like after they signed, then they go and change the behavior and they start doing their things. And now the crops are spoiled because they're going to be paid. Yeah.
Or a driver can also drive recklessly, eh? At the end of the day, he knows that he's covered and will be, compensated. So you find that you are a farmer, you have, insured your crops or your livestock, but then you fail to take good care or manage them accordingly, because at the back of your mind, you know that in case of any loss, you will be compensated. So you end up providing misleading information to the other parties. And this occurs after the signing of the contract. So we find that, and what about opportunistic behavior? What about opportunistic behavior? Opportunistic behavior? Who can give us an example of opportunistic behavior? I know some of us, we are opportunistic players, eh? Opportunist players, eh?
They say like these sellers that they know the crop has a defect or there's a disease, but they just let the buyer take it. Or like we see mainly that's an example in that.
Yes, Sibongile has rightly put it that it is an exploitation of a situation for personal gain. So it stems from the self-interest notion of the players, because each individual or an actor wants to maximize or attempts to maximize on the individual advantages and minimize on the costs, or they avoid costs. So you find that, let me give you an example, Nancy, maybe the Kenyan context or scenario. whereby we have this the Irish potato farmers. I know at some point, I think 2 years ago, the government came up with a policy, a standard measurement for the Irish potatoes, because farmers are normally exploited by the middlemen. The kind of packaging or material that they use is not really the 50 kg one, but you find that the way they package the Irish potato even goes beyond 50. They even have an extension of the sack. They're normally, put in sacks, but you find that when they get these potatoes from the farm, they even add or extend the sack. And when they get to the market, they can be able to get an extra sack from whatever they get. But then they paid the customer or the farmer for only one sack. So they are looking at their interests. How can they benefit? They maximize their benefit at the expense of these farmers. They try to exploit these farmers, and yet they're the ones who have really, done a lot of work. So you find that different players, of course, have these opportunistic behaviors because they want to maximize on their individual gains. So at the end of the day, you find that if there is no information sharing or the flow of information is tampered with, then decision-making becomes difficult within the chain, because decision-making is based on the information which is available and which is shared. So sometimes you find that decisions can be biased, and this is based on the information that is available, or sometimes it can prevent these chain actors from attaining optimal solution. And that is why information is very important. As you look at the flow of resources along the chain, you also find that information must flow in both directions across the chain. Are we together? Hello?
Yes, doctor, we are together.
Any question? So what are the benefits of information sharing? Who can tell us the benefits of information sharing? What is the benefit? When you talk about information sharing, it's all about collecting data, analyzing it, documenting. That is also part of information sharing. Storing the right data, retrieving the data as you transfer it to the concerned parties. So what are the benefits of information sharing? Hey guys, Mercy, I can see you are there.
I can give it a
try. Yes. You've joined us, but a bit late. I hope we will catch up.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Information sharing helps players in the value chain make informed decisions.
Mm-hmm. So the actors are in a position to make, the right decision.
Yes.
Because without information, they might not know or understand what the customer needs, the quantities that maybe should be availed, the time, among other things. Pokane, can you hear your voice?
Good afternoon, Doctor. I'm in the library. I just typed my answer in the chat, so I can't speak.
Okay, so you say that it also builds on trust and communication among actors. Of course, they must communicate for them to be able to share the information. And if they can willingly share the information, that builds trust or enhances trust. What else?
Doctor, I think it also increases the sense of awareness of what is prevailing. For example, I can say in the coffee value chain, you don't only based on the information you get from the market, sorry, the dictates from the futures market or the prevailing market. You also do this surveillance. So that circulation of information helps you get to know the stand beyond what you had perceived. Yes, thank you.
So you're able to understand the dynamics within the value chain, rather than what is common to the public domain or is known. You are able to also dig deeper and understand the nitty-gritty, things within the value chain. What else? Don't you think it reduces opportunism or this opportunistic behavior? And even the adverse selection and moral hazards? Can information sharing reduce opportunism? Hello? Can information sharing reduce opportunism along the value chain? Of course, it does, eh? Hey, you guys, today you don't want to talk.
Yes, it does, because there is transparency, there is reduced information advantage, and then there is trust is built. So it does reduce.
Yes. And remember, trust is an institution, eh? Trust is an institution, eh? For instance, when actors enter into a contractual agreement, you find that based on the trust, they're able to transact a number of businesses. So the other thing is that it can also facilitate the supply chain coordination. And of course, people can coordinate various activities within the chain if they possess the right information. So it facilitates supply chain coordination. Also, dealing with market uncertainties. There are so many market uncertainties in the, when these actors have the right information in terms of sales, the prices, the inventory, and so on, then they can be able to address these uncertainties. If they are sure of the demand, the quantity that is demanded, then that can help them as they produce or manufacture these products so that they don't under supply or oversupply. When they understand the tests, and the preferences. They are able to do sales monitoring to understand the flow of these goods, how they are moving. And therefore, they are able to deal with the uncertainties. Of course, we talked about reducing opportunism before and after a contract. We've also talked about, of course, achieving contractual clarity. When you enter into a contractual agreement, you must understand the small little things about this contractual arrangement. So at the end of the day, if both parties are willing to share the right information without reservations, then they are able to make or come to an agreement. So this figure just shows you the benefits of information sharing. So again, at your given time, you can go through these information. Of course, the source has been indicated. You can download the full article and read through the article and understand these benefits. Are we together?
Yes,
Hello?
doctor. Yes.
Yes, Doctor.
Okay. Now, because of the technologies or emerging technologies, remember we are able to address some of the challenges when it comes to information management. Try to imagine those who did their PhDs even or masters 30 years ago. Try to picture how are they accessing information. You know, you guys, you just click a button. You go to the Google Scholar, and it will display the related information about your topic of discussion. But imagine 30 years ago. How are those learners managing? Have you ever tried to picture? Hello? Hello? Hey, you guys, I want you to tell me, how are they managing?
How did the previous years people manage the data collection or the information gathering?
Access to information, leave alone even data collection and gathering.
So I think, Doctor, a lot in previous years, a lot of the information was kept in encyclopedias and books and so on. So a lot of the time you'd have to go, especially in the academic setting, you'd have to go to like libraries, be it public libraries or like the university libraries, to see what were some of the papers in the archive. You'd actually have to go and fetch them from the archive or the repository, see some of the books that you could look at. You'd approach the librarians to get assistance to at least gather some of the information. At least that's how it was done in my parents' era.
So you can imagine they could walk into the library or wherever they could get information and get the hard copy of the reference material. So that was quite tedious, And then you read through the entire book or article, because you're not sure where the information lies. But, you know, with the internet, you are able to get the right material within the shortest time possible. And sometimes we find that those days you could only get few copies, or maybe a copy can only be found in a different library or university. So you have to arrange or even travel to that place to be able to access that information. So it was very, very costly. But how has it transformed in the wake up of digitalization? So right now, you can access whatever information you want within a very short time, and you are able to manage the information, of course, using different softwares. And even when collecting data, some of you will be collecting data. You don't need the, the questionnaires, the printed questionnaires. You can go digital. You digitalize the questionnaires such that as the respondents or as the enumerators collect data, they key it into the system, and by the time they are, done with the data collection, you already have your data, either in Excel, Stata, or SPSS. But those days, you could, of course, there are people who still use the hard copies of the questionnaires. You can also record the conversations, the discussions. For instance, when you have key informant interviews, you can record the session, and then later on you can transcribe that information. So there are many ways in which we manage the information. So there's so many changes that have taken place within the supply chain because of internet. And right now you are able even to trace food right from production, to the consumer end. So again, because of food safety problems, which of course has been a challenge, we find that traceability systems have been developed, and this can ensure that this foodstuff can be traced, and their safety, which is of course a concern, can be addressed. So now at this point, I want you guys, again, in your groups, various groups, I want you to identify the different tools, traceability tools, or traceability systems that are used, especially in the agricultural system. Are we together?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, doctor. Just a question on that. By when do we need to submit it? If we can just ask that you just send a announcement with a submission date, and when we'll be presenting, if we have to present again, doctor, please.
Okay. Yes, so I'll get there. So when you talk about traceability, we know that the current consumers are concerned about food safety. And I know as you go to, do your shopping, you go to the supermarket and you pick an item, you normally check on a number of things. You check on the, expiry date. You want to understand the different contents of that product. If it is yogurt, you want to understand, the fat content, the sugar content, among others. So because of this concern about food safety, there are different tools, systems which have emerged that can enable actors to monitor the safety of these food as they move through the supply chain. So people can be able to track and trace food, and not just food, even the feed that is used and the final products as they move through the supply chain. So when you talk about tracing, can someone tell us what's the difference between tracking and tracing? Tracking and tracing.
Doctor, tracking is checking the movement from one point in the supply chain all the way through. So for example, for us as consumers that make use of like online purchases, tracking for us would be how it moves from the producer to the depot to the person who's then delivering it to our houses, and then obviously when it gets to us. However, traceability is something that we can track where it comes from. So it goes all the way back. It goes backwards in the supply chain, all the way to the producers, and even further in some instances to even the inputs that they used for the production of that product or good.
So when you talk about tracking, you are able to understand the flow of these foods along the supply chain. Already, if it is a product, it has been developed and now being released into the market. And you want to understand its movement along the supply chain. When you talk about tracing, you want to understand the history of this product. How was the processing done? For instance, you want to trace on the beef sausage or pork sausage. You want to understand the type of beef, where the meat was sourced from. If it is a cattle, which cattle, produced that meat? And how or where was the slaughtering done? How was it done? Until you get to the point that that beef sausage, was made. So you want to understand some history about the products. And with the kind of technology that we have, this has increased transparency within the supply chains. We are able to trace the history of some of these products. In fact, you can get a product and it links you even to the producer. If it is milk, the specific cow that produced that milk. If it is meat, the cattle that produced that meat. So such that if there are some defections, if there are challenges, then you can trace it to that particular cow and be able to address that challenge. Are we together?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, so when you talk about the traceability, again, we are giving or you are presenting a set of data about, for instance, the location of that food, where is it coming from, the ingredients that have been used to, come up with the final products, among many other information. So normally consumers are willing and they're ready to pay a premium as long as there is health benefits or other benefits that accrues, with the products. So how can consumers pay the extra coin? So again, if you enable these activities, the tracking and the traceability along the supply chain, then it can increase some of these attributes, the product attributes, the functional attributes, the processes attributes, among others. And at the end of the day, you will also be able to reduce on some of the risks and improve efficiency, as well as be able to control some of the challenges, for instance, livestock diseases, poultry diseases, and so on and so forth. So it is very important that these systems be, of course, adopted within the food chains, so that as a consumer, you can be able to access information about these products if necessary. Of course, there are people who do not care about the information. You've seen people just walk into the supermarket and they, grab a product from the shelf and they don't take their time even to read through the packaging material. But ideally, you should be able to go through
Hi, Doctor. I think you muted yourself by accident.
Doctor, there's no sound coming from your side.
Oh, sorry, did I mute myself? Sorry.
Yes, doctor.
So I've been talking to myself, eh? Now, I was giving you an example. One day I walked into a supermarket and picked a beef sausage, but then I didn't take time to read, through the packaging material just to understand, the expiry date and so on and so forth. So the following day, I wanted to make my sausage. Then I could see some green, stuff, and I was like, "What's up?" So when I checked the expiry date, already it had expired. Eh? So, and those are some of the challenges that we do go through as consumers and other actors. Eh? When you don't take time to read the information that is contained on the packaging material. So those information are very, very important because we have customers who are very keen, who are very specific, and they need the information to make a decision. Are we together? And I know that we
Yes,
have,
doctor.
at the moment, we have the food safety rules and standards. Eh? For instance, the hazard analysis and critical control point. That is a standard for certification. And if you want to participate in certain markets, then you must adhere to these standards. The food safety and hygiene systems, those are very, very important. And there are certain services that must also be controlled. So at the end of the day, we need to increase transparency along the supply chains. And this can be done by adopting some of these traceability systems. So now the assignment is simple. Again, in your teams, can you identify the traceability systems that are currently being used to enable transparency within the supply chains? And of course, at the end of the day, you will present these assignments. So identify them. Of course, we also need to see some of the photos of those systems. and how they are used, the information that they capture, and how they are applied. Are we together?
Yes, doctor.
So I think that is simple. The assignment is simple.
Could you please repeat, doctor?
So can you identify the traceability systems or tools that are used for tracking and tracing food and feed along the supply chain? So for instance, you want to track, understand the kind of feeds that were fed to certain animals. Where did you get the feeds from? So with that understanding, that you might know whether it was of quality, low quality, or good quality. So what are some of the systems or tools that can be used to track and trace these food and feed along the supply chain? Is it clear?
Yes, doctor.
Any question?
No,
Alice, how
doctor,
are
it's
you?
clear.
Alice,
Yes, doctor.
how are you?
I'm not really fine, but I'll be okay.
Where are your other colleagues from Uganda?
Mercy is here. I can't see the boys, but I joined in late, so I really didn't know that they were not here. Maybe I'll get in touch after.
Are you also experiencing load shedding?
No.
Okay, I thought that maybe you're also affected, eh?
Not really.
Okay. So please, advise them to be joining the classes, eh?
Yes.
So I think Sibongile is requesting that I post the instruction on the ARC platform so that the groups can pick them from there. Of course, I will do so, eh? So the other thing, of course, as you identify these traceability tools, you should also explain how they ensure the safety, monitoring, of safety of these products along the supply chain. Because safety is very important. And we know that when you talk of the food and feed, these are very sensitive products, and their safety must be monitored. So again, the safety issues must come out strongly in your discussions. Now, concerning next week's test, which will be done on Thursday, on Tuesday, I mean. I know some of you are keen on the scope of the tests. So I mentioned that whatever we have covered, of course, qualifies to be examined. So up to today's lesson, what we have covered. So I will not really share with you the specific topics, but my understanding is that you should always be ready at all times.
Hey, doctor, maybe I can inquire. How about maybe we get maybe like access to some of your past assessed, as in to weigh like what is expected of us. Yeah.
To the past papers, eh?
Yeah.
I think what we have been discussing, basically I will draw the questions from the content, the discussions that we've been having. Remember the kind of questions that we normally set applications, right? Not direct. I will not ask you to define what tracking and tracing is, or the difference between tracing and tracking, you know. So you should be able to understand the concepts such that you are able to apply, and where possible, cite examples.
Doctor, so just to clarify, we won't necessarily be asked a question pertaining to papers, but we'll be asked, for example, practical examples, or practical examples that will show understanding of the specific content. Am I understanding you correctly?
That is it. That is it. That is it.
And Doctor, just an indication, how long will the test be? Will it be during class time?
Yes, it will be during class time.
Okay, and how will the test work, Doctor, in terms of, will we be given a paper that we then need to complete and then scan and then upload back onto ClickUp?
I know a number of you have not been able to access ClickUp. They've not been registered on ClickUp, especially those from other countries. The South Africans, you guys are okay. So there was a request that I use the Moodle. So I think I'll try and navigate through it and give you feedback before the end of the week on the platform that we shall use. So because normally when we use ClickUp, we time. Of course, I post the questions on the wall, and then I'm able to time the beginning and the end, and you can download it. You can print if you have a printer. You can download it, and if you are very good at typing, because normally it is a Word document, you can type, or you can write on a piece of paper. You can answer the questions on a piece of paper, and then thereafter you scan and you upload. But that should be done within the constrained time that been set.
All right, thank you very much, Doctor. And then in terms of, you said we must cite examples as far as possible. So do you mean we must cite papers just to say from this paper by this person? For example,
that was
if you
just an
choose to type
example.
it.
That was,
Oh, okay.
Uncle, that was just an example, eh? I don't have to
Okay,
give you
no,
all
I'm
the
just
details.
asking. Okay,
I
no,
don't
I
have
was
to
just
give you
double
all the
checking.
details. That was just an example that, for instance, you can, cite examples, but of course, the tests just is all about understanding. Have you understood the concept? Are you able to apply the concepts? For instance, when I talk about the vertical integration, horizontal integration, do you understand what we mean by horizontal integration? How has it been applied? Cases where it has worked. So we want to see the practicality now of these concepts.
All right, thank you,
So
Doctor.
that's how open book normally works, the open book questions, because they are not direct questions. Because if we give you direct questions and you can sit and Google and download everything, and we get a marking scheme from your end, then that is not really a test.
Doctor, concerning this assignment, are we presenting like next Wednesday?
No, I think we'll present it after next week.
Okay.
Yes, I will present it after next week because I know these tools are quite a number, and requires quite some time to do a good job.
Okay.
Yes, so we'll present after next week.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other question? Today I want to leave you early because I should be joining another meeting in a short while.
No, everything's fine from our side. I think if we've got any other questions, we'll just communicate it on the WhatsApp group by the class reps, Doctor.
Yes, but then I told you that there are those who have not sent the PowerPoint presentations. And the other assignment, because I should upload them on the ARC and the ClickUp platform so that at your own time you can go through them. So 2 teams have not submitted the group assignment. And about, I've only received the individual assignment from 9 yes. 9 people. So the rest, I don't know their plans. I don't know whether they plan to forward those assignments or not.
Doctor, maybe in the announcement outlining the test instructions or the guidelines and all of that, maybe you can just say which groups still need to submit. That will give us an indication of who to remind that they maybe just forwarded to you. And then just maybe a reminder about the individual assignments between the modern and the traditional supply chain stuff. Then they can always forward that as well.
Oh, okay. Just as where is Arno? Do you know whereabouts of Arno and Mushi?
Unfortunately, I do not, Doctor. I'll ask on the group to confirm what's going on with him, but I haven't, to my knowledge, I don't.
Because these are honor students,
Okay.
Honor student. I know Troy sent an apology. But what about Arno and Mushi?
I'll have to check, Doctor. I'll put a message on our group for them.
Please encourage them,
Yes, Doctor.
Encourage them to be joining, because I can see the attendance is not really pleasing. So those are the honor students, and the others we have, of course, Cecilia, Lindan is there, Kadile. There's Maseho. Geoffrey. Maseho and Geoffrey. But Maseho has never joined, Do you know Maseho?
Yes, Doctor,
Uncle,
she's one of
Uncle?
the UP students. Yes, she's one of the master's UP students. I
Yes.
can send her a message, Doctor. I'll send her a message. I just have choir tonight from 6 to 8. But afterwards, I'll try and call her and just find out and ask her if there's something that's happening. She must maybe just send you an email to communicate what's going on, just so you are aware as well.
I remember she sent me an email at the beginning of the semester that she got a job. So, but it was not clear whether she would be attending or missing the classes.
All right,
kindly
Doctor,
just
I'll find out
if she's still with us, or if she's not with us, then I think it is good to have that information. What about Geoffrey? Alice, where is Geoffrey?
Geoffrey is okay. I think this week he has been having some issues, but he's okay. He'll sort them out. I think by next week he'll be okay. He will be back on board.
Okay.
Yes.
So we need to account for everyone,
But doctor,
So
I also sent you an email, I think last evening, but I don't know whether I received it because I didn't get a reply.
I saw you sent me an your work, the individual
Yes.
assignment or what?
Yes, yes.
Did I?
doctor.
I think I responded. I thought that I did respond to your email. Hello? So we've lost you,
Yes.
Alice.
No, I'm
Okay.
here.
Oh, you're there. I
Yeah.
thought that I responded to your email,
Let me see, but I think you
Oh,
did.
okay. Yes, I didn't, But
Yeah, but
let me
if you received the
acknowledge
work,
it.
it's okay. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. So I think let's stop at this point. And I know we have a lot of articles to read, and I will also send you more. But after the assignments, that is when I will send you the articles for this lesson. But I encourage you guys to go through those articles, go through those case studies. That is where we draw questions from. Are we together?
Yes, doctor. Thank you very much.
Yes, please be reading those articles because they now address the practical aspect of these concepts. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Doctor, bye.
Bye. So I'll communicate in the course of the week, maybe.
Thank you, doctor.
Maybe by Friday.
Okay.
And if it's possible, maybe on Monday we can have a trial session just to see how you can navigate through the Moodle and access the tests. Thank you.
Doctor.